Today, we're going to be talking about designing your next Canvas course and kind of what you can expect when you first get into Canvas if you haven't taught in Canvas yet. And we're going to be talking about some kind of things that people have discovered in Canvas. They thought, hey, this is really important. We want to pass this along, or this is what I really wish I would have known a little bit more today or when I was first teaching Canvas. So that's what we'll have Jonathan Bruce here and Weepawi Tongprawan as well presenting. So we'll just give a quick introduction and then we'll get started. So Jonathan Bruce will be presenting first. He is an Associate Director of the College of Letters and Sciences, Cultures and Communities and is an Associate Lecturer in Comparative Ethnic Studies and in the Department of History. And Weepawi Tongprawan we're presenting after him, and she is a clinical assistant professor in the College of Nursing with research interests in mental health and qualitative research. And then both will share their experience, kind of what they've discovered in Canvas and some of the things that they wish they maybe would have known the first time they were teaching as well. So Jonathan, thank you, and please.
Hello. Yes, so thank you for the introduction. So I've been working with Canvas since the fall semester, and between the fall and the spring semester, there were a couple of things that I really wish I had known kind of going into it in the fall. So that's going to be essentially what I'm going to be walking through with you today. It's just the stuff I wish I had known. So where I'm coming from with this is mostly a student's perspective rather than mine, because of course I'm designing the course. I think that it makes total sense and it's intuitive to me, so I don't want any feedback. Be that as it may, I discovered very early on that students kind of interact and think much differently than I do, so things that seem intuitive to me aren't necessarily the same for other students or other people. I also have a tendency to speak very quickly. If anybody needs me to slow down, please let me know. I will not be offended. It is something I've been trying to work on for all my life. So we're going to be taking a look at my Ethnic Studies 325 course, and this is what it looks like in kind of my view. And like I said, it makes a lot of sense to me. So the recent announcements, course documents, look at that, the syllabus right at the top, and then we go right into the course readings divided by week. I was very proud of myself when I made this in D2L. I thought it was super great because I based it on all the things that I thought other people were doing wrong. And then this semester, I started getting more and more feedback about kind of just how students were actually interacting with this. And this is really the first time that I've actually encountered students that were having trouble navigating this. And so the big thing that I really want to impart as kind of like the first piece of wisdom is redundancy. Just kind of the more kind of redundant information you have on this, the more likely somebody who doesn't think along the same lines that you do is going to encounter the information that they need. So one of the big things that happened towards the end of the semester was a student could not find the syllabus for the life of them. And I told them and I showed them, it was right on the course document, but they're like, every time I go onto Canvas, I click the syllabus and I don't see it. I just see a list of the assignments due, and I need more information than that. Now, bad screen. Okay. Now, I know we can just start complaining about how students should have taken access to this, or they can go into their email and look up the many times that I've sent various documents to them. But I mean, in fairness to students, they have a lot going on, and sometimes the easiest solutions to us isn't the same thing to them. So even though I have the Ethnic Studies 325 syllabus right here, in terms of the syllabus tab, which I included because it included this handy course summary, in a conversation with Lane just last week, he revealed that you can actually make it so that it is a pop-up, or at least provide a link to the same document. And it might seem unnecessary to provide these redundancies to students, but at the same time, like I said, they don't think the same way that everybody else does. So if you give them these tools, they won't necessarily have to reach out to you to get it, because it makes a lot of sense to click the syllabus button, and if that syllabus isn't there, where is it? So redundancy, I think, is one of the coolest features of Canvas, in that, yes, you can take away that syllabus button if you want to. Yes, you can rely on course documents, but it does no harm to have just the same files in multiple places, so that students who approach these things just a little bit differently have access to that material in a timely fashion. Speaking of the ability to provide students with the kind of tools they need, I'm sure you've already experienced this, but a friendly little button, the student view, does kind of break down the Canvas site into how your students are going to be seeing this and potentially interacting with this. Like I said, I'm sure that we've already covered this or you've discovered it yourself, but this actually shows you, you know, just the way that Canvas presents its information. As you can see, it doesn't even really appear that there are hyperlinks unless you choose to actually link to an outside source. So that might be a stumbling block for your students. They have a bunch of what looks like dead links to things. Just let them know that just because it doesn't look that blue of a hyperlink, that it does go to where it promises to go. But more importantly, I want to just talk a little bit about the grade function for students. So this is my test student. And as you can see, there's a bunch of missing stuff because, well, it's a test student, didn't really feel that I should submit everything for them. But I put in a couple of grades here. So the first assignment of the semester is what I eventually learned was called a controlled failure scenario, where I give them an assignment that has very specific, rigorous expectations, just as an exercise in making sure that they can read and follow directions, get them to ask questions if anything is unclear. So essentially what this is that no matter how poorly they do on this document, they can still get an A in the course. And that's sometimes a little bit difficult for me to convey to them that, you know, yes, you can actually full on fail the assignment. Nobody ever really truly full on fails, but you can, and you can still get an A in the course. What the grading tool does on a student's perspective is not only does it kind of break down what we have here, but it has a neat little feature that, let's say this is the only one here. They got that D- and they're freaking out. What I like to do is I like to show them this page and say, okay, so this is your worst case scenario for this first assignment. What you can do for anything that doesn't actually have a score in it or does have a score, you can give yourself any grade that you want and see what that does to your hypothetical final result. So let's say they got that really bad score, a D- on that first paper. Well, if they do well in the rest of the class, that sets them at an A-. Add the participation, add the attendance grade, and that's going to boost them right into an A territory. So this gives them the opportunity to plot out how much time and effort they would need for the rest of the semester, or at least give them the expectation and of, you know, where they might need to do some more work. I really think that's a kind of cool feature. I intend to introduce this feature to all of my classes that include any kind of grading scenario, just so that they know where they are in relationship to the rest of the course in terms of grades. Am I going too fast? I hope this is useful. So the last thing that I wish I had known from a student's perspective, again, it deals with grades. So we're gonna really do not think of, there we go. So when I first utilized Canvas, I had no intention of using the grading feature whatsoever. It kind of intimidated me, and I preferred just downloading the documents, marking them up in Microsoft Word, and re-uploading them as commentary attachments to students. I thought that was useful, and then I realized that Canvas has a lot of really cool tools that let you mark it up in really different ways. So one of the things that I find the most useful is kind of the pin tool right here, or sorry, the point annotation. And especially for that first assignment where there's very rigorous expectations, I like to actually keep a track of, okay, you've successfully done this, and where it is, so that I can point to it and say, you ticked that box. And this is why, because you just kind of put in your pins and you can point to that and say, hey, this is great. You can have different colors if you want to kind of associate it with different things. There's the highlighter. I really like the highlight tool when there's a really good point or if there's a confusing sentence, but also I like to switch up the color to pink just in case there's a citation issue so that they know that there's a visual tell between the two. Strikeout, obviously, you can strike out different words. And then you have the kind of drawing tool. So if there's something that deserves to actually go up towards the top, you can just paint that little arrow. As a side note, always click when you're done drawing the little check mark. Otherwise, it completely breaks the system and it goes all over the place. But to get back to kind of the major point, back to the idea of how students are interacting with this tool. When they look at your comments, if you choose to do this, comes up in a little pop-up, and it's really crammed and hard to see. So most students are actually going to choose the option of downloading a PDF, which creates all of these annotations in a much easier to read document. The problem with that, as I discovered for the first time that I actually graded papers like this, is the fact that each and every one of these points creates a little comment bubble in Adobe Acrobat that just says locked comment. And when students encounter something like that, they freak out because they think they've done something bad and they want to know how they can fix it, even if they get an A. I had a student, got an A, she did perfectly on that first assignment, but she needed to know what I meant by locked comment. She didn't know. So each and every one of these has the option to kind of override just that simple locked comment feature. And for the first time that you're using those push pins, just a little note, completed expectation. Or if you want to be more developed, these marks denote completed expectations. When you cross something out, instead of just crossing it out and leaving it like that, make a little note like unnecessary verbiage or whatever it is that you're doing. These little notes help communicate how you're grading and why you're grading to students, and they always really appreciate that. And obviously, this depends as much on the assignment as well as your particular grading style. The really cool thing about making these kinds of notes and features is that even if you forget to mute the assignment, students aren't really notified of your activity until you actually go and grade the assignment and put in your own comment. Then they'll receive that notification that, oh, my grade is done. I always do recommend making sure to mute the assignment because that way you can grade everybody at once and then unmute it. They all get the notification. It's this little kind of hard to see grayed out bell up here. Even when it's activated, all it does is it puts a little interdiction symbol over the bell. So it's hard to see, but it's really useful. But like I said, if you're just kind of playing around with the comments, students won't know. Students will only get the notification when you change their grade and when you provide a comment. So yeah, that's essentially what I've kind of discovered in my time utilizing Canvas and kind of the student interactions that I've had, the questions that have come up. So the big things, redundancy, introduce them to that grading tool so they feel a lot more kind of in control of what they need to do for the course. This is only anecdotal evidence, but even when I explained to students in the past that first paper you can do poorly on, but still get an A in the course, I do see a lot of people who end up, simply withdrawing from the class. This semester, nobody withdrew after that first assignment, even when they did very poorly, because I took the time to explain, like, here's what you can see, here's what you can expect moving forward. And I think that me just saying it's still possible to do well in this class is one thing, but actually sitting down and seeing those numbers play out really puts students at ease when it comes to that. So it's like, it's not the end of the world. I can get a series of C's on the next assignment and still pass the class. That means a lot. And then finally, just the kind of clarity in what these symbols mean, so that even something that seems really, really obvious to you is now just a lot more direct and straightforward with the students. But that's it. So yeah, yes.
Can we unlock the comments
What do you mean by unlock?
on Adobe? You said when the student gets it, what's pinned, it locks the comments.
Yeah. So what it does is it as far as I'm aware, you can't like erase that and keep the mark, because of the way that Adobe works is that you are making comments in the documents. But do you have a?
No, this is a really good question, because what you're doing is really interesting. You're like putting those little bubbles to say, oh, each one of those little blue marks is where they did something that you like. And you aren't adding comments, you're just putting where they're at.
Right.
If you don't put any comments associated with those blue marks, that's when the students are seeing locked comment.
Right.
So Adobe puts that in there automatically. That's not anything we do. It's just
Okay.
something Adobe does. If you were to put a comment, like he said, completed expectation, they hover over that bubble and then it'll say completed expectation.
Then they can see it.
Then they'll see it automatically.
Okay.
But if you don't put anything there, then it'll
Yes,
say
it's
locked
locked.
comment,
Yeah.
which
Got
is a
it.
really
Okay, sorry. That
Okay.
was a breakdown of my communication skills. I apologize, but yeah, like that's, as long as you're putting something in there, they'll be able to see that. If you don't, no matter what the mark, it's going to be locked comment. Yes.
I have a question about this based on something that was said in another one of these active learning labs, where the instructor said she stopped commenting on the paper because the students were having trouble seeing those comments. So she only used the comments at the end, the sort of big type in your final comment, and not mark up the document itself because they were looking on their phones and they couldn't see that. And so I was wondering how that played out with your experience, because it sounds like you're not having that same problem with your students.
So I took the time to walk through and show them how to download the comments. I'm not entirely sure. Like, yeah, if you're reading on the phone and you're trying to access Canvas, like that seems like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I took the time to show them how to download that, and even though PDFs are going to be really tiny on that, at least they'll have the capacity to kind of read the comments in a larger size.
Right.
Because yeah, if you might humor me for a second, we can, if I switch back to
move on with that a little bit as well, when they download it as a PDF, those little bubbles with the notes attached to them, so that blue bubble with the note attached to it, in the PDF, the students will not see that bubble automatically open. So they'll have to hover over it and then it'll pop open. The other thing to be mindful as well is I've had students want to print these out with the comments. The comments that you put in those little bubbles will not print because they won't show up. So yeah, I know. Yeah,
I'm gonna let it out.
So yeah, like this is how it defaults if you're kind of trying to view this in the browser. And I would imagine that if you're trying to view it in the browser on your phone, like even on full screen, this is a nightmare. Like this can be really tough to actually figure out what's going on. So I introduced the students to just download the annotated PDF. And
do you do that just to show?
Oh yeah, sure. So save. Come on, there we go. And once we do that, provided that everything goes according to plan, as we all have, because nothing ever goes to plan.
See, that's, yep.
So the particular marks may not change color, but, and I don't know if it's just Adobe being, so yeah, hovering over it, I believe if you double click, it'll actually open up the comment box, or maybe I just broke it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, come on. It's thinking.
Like because you have that.
Yeah, probably. So.
Right.
Click.
Funky.
And now it's just doing this to annoy me. So it might also be the commentary pane. Nope, that is add comment. Okay, so I am completely blanking because I'm in the middle of a presentation, so now I'm blanking enough to actually get that. But there is a particular view that does keep a list of the comments on that side. That let's see if pull that out. I don't see it here, but it does exist. I promise you. In any case, it's when you have that list open where like all of these marks that don't have an attendant commentary would just say that blocked comment. And that's where people kind of get weirded out and want to know what's going on. Yes.
Yeah, quick question. This is actually everybody here. At my previous institution was 100% online. We had problems with not everybody had the same, updated Adobe. Is that common here? Or do you find the students tend to have the latest reader? Because I could see this not working if someone had an older computer and, you know,
Right.
or an older.
Theoretically, they have access to that through their student status, but I've also seen a lot of students who don't realize that they can
Okay.
get software from their student status and are using weird other stuff.
Okay.
So, so I'm sorry, Jonathan.
No.
If they have Adobe Reader is free, right?
Right, but
Yep.
if they have an earlier version of it.
But if your ones are running it in the browser, they'll be able to see everything. So they have their browser updated and they have their browser. That's where they're viewing most of this.
Okay,
But if they download it, that's when Adobe Acrobat will be a
Okay.
problem. So yeah.
Yes.
But then if we really need them to to be able to go back to that and use that content potentially in building blocks of another assignment.
Yeah.
Is it better to leave it in Word so they can do that?
So I see exactly where you're going from. So like this particular class, the first paper builds into the midterm, and then the midterm can be built upon for the final project as an option. I don't have the evidence one way or the other as of right now if the past has worked better than this. So I will have to unfortunately get back to you on that one. What I feel is going to be better is because at least with the first paper moving into the midterm, I've noticed that people actually kind of internalize the comments a lot better than if it's in Microsoft Word. That they're actually forced to kind of have two separate documents, one that is marked up and then one that isn't. And then they actually have to go and adapt and change what we've said in that point to that point. Last semester, I did have a student, and how I approached that was the traditional way, which is, download the document, mark it up, send it back. And the work that he put in was essentially like copying and pasting my comments into the final paper and then adding a paragraph. And students don't realize that Microsoft Word has that fun little function where you can just compare the two and it's like, oh, this is mostly the same. So I didn't see nearly as much of that between paper one and the midterm. People actually kind of developed new approaches to what I said so that it was much harder for them to copy paste without it looking obvious. And then, in the comparison between the two documents, that it was substantial development rather than that. So I don't have the hard numbers on that, but it does look like this overall is positive just because it's encouraging people to kind of keep an uneditable document open and then respond to the comments rather than just copy paste.
May I add in one more miscellaneous thing about if you use the speed grader to annotate a document, a nice feature is that then you are able in the same speed grader window later on to see when, if, and therefore when a student has either viewed that document or downloaded it. I mean, I don't think it tells you whether it was simply viewing or downloading it, but if they click on that version of it, then in the speed grader, you're going to get a little note saying when student viewed the document.
Yep.
So if it is important to you to be able to track, yes, have students actually opened up and looked at my feedback, this is the best way I've encountered of being able to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Your document. Thank you, Sarah.
That is good to know. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much.
Okay. So just
Exactly. I'll have you, disconnect and take it with you. Because we'll hook in my computer here just because. Get that, we had it back. So we'll just shift gears here and get a weekly presenters. If you need bagel or coffee, please feel free.
sorry.
All right.
I'm going to.
Screen. Can you see that? Right. You can see
Yep,
it?
I'm
Okay.
watching it. Perfect.
You know, video, we're all set. All right. I think I should have enough power. I'm just gonna end this real quick just so I can make sure we have juice. Okay, we have juice for the rest of it. So I know where you're. plugged in and you don't have so much. Perfect.
All right, so good morning, everyone. And again, thank you for coming. So as Lynn said, I teach at the College of Nursing. I teach mental health and research as well. So I started using Canvas in fall 18, and I am one of the pioneer courses that started using Canvas. So I use it there, and then also spring semester. So what I'm gonna sharing with you guys today is about what I learned, and I wish I could have known that I shouldn't do it. That's one of my mistakes when I first started. So number one, lesson learned, it's how to create a discussion forum. I found that simple is the best. So my point is I taught health informatics. So those are 3 credit courses. We have 7 discussion forums. So some of the forum, I give them 3 questions and I give them option that you don't have to answer all 3. You can answer 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, or some week it's 4 questions. You can answer 2 out of 4, something like that. So I'm thinking, how do I set up in a way that make it user friendly? How do I set up discussion forum that should I include all 3 questions in one forum and then let them reply all 3, or should I separate it, but group them? And then let's say I have 3 questions, right? So option A is you will include 3 questions in one discussion forum and mark that, okay, you have to answer all to get full credit. Or do I group them in one forum and separate each question? And then I mark that. You just answer 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 4, like that. And then you just look at the question you want to answer and then answer that. Which way is easier? So my purpose of doing this is these are the questions that I actually have. You can see why I have to think that way, because it's super long. It's a lot of questions, it's a lot of content. And imagine if I include all 3 in one forum, and then students reply all 3 in one forum. I have 6 students, 6, 7 in one. And then I tend to see students tend to, you have to do initial post, right? And then student will post it about 300 words, and then you have to do reply post. So a lot of time when it's long, 3 questions, it's go down toward the end. And then when students do reply post, they tend to reply the last student who do initial post. They don't go to the top, kind of, because they're kind of tired of reading because all 3 questions and all those. They're like, wait, how do I do it and make it easy for them? So that's the context that the class I have. So students have to do about 300 words for initial post, and then they have to reply to their peer for 3 different students. So that's to engage discussion. And then each group have 6 students. So the way of my class layout is here. So for this side, you can see how I set it up. So each forum was 5%, and I have 3 questions. So, and then I group them to be 5%. So you can answer question 1, question 2, question 3, and I put option 1, option 2, and option 3. So students can pick either like which question that you're gonna reply. Or if you do option A, meaning let's say you pick module 3 discussion. So I put 3 questions in there at one point. So that's how I see it. So what would I do? So I choose option B. That's a major mistake that I did. So you think it makes sense, it's perfect. You see I lay out nicely and I apply rules over here. I'll show you what it is. So rule here, it means I set up Canvas to drop the question that unanswered. It will drop automatically. So I hope it's easier for me to grade, even though, because students can just reply 1 question out of 3. So let's say you, a student, you reply question 1, question 2, and question 3 will be dropped automatically because I already applied rule over here. So the rule over here is say here, drop the lowest 2, meaning the 2 questions that did not answer, it will drop automatically. So that's how I set up reply rule. That's what I did. The purpose of doing this is I want to provide a user-friendly option. I want to reduce lengthy discussion among all discussion forum. I hope to Canva to drop the question that answer right away, and I hope it's easier for me to grade. That's how I feel, and I hope I would get by set up this way. All right, what I actually found is, yes, it's a user-friendly option. It reduced lengthy discussion. It dropped automatically, but grading was a major challenge, what I found. Why do I say that? Here, because you have to track student do initial post within a certain deadline. Let's say I opened it for 2 weeks. Some semester I open it for 1 week. So you have to do initial post by Thursday of the first week, or if you do 2 weeks, you have to do initial post by the end of week 1. So, and then student will do reply post to their peer, right? So, because I have 5 group of students. If you are student number 1 in group 1, you can do initial post on question 1, but you can do reply post on question 2, question 3. Question 1, question 2, I'm like, because how do I grade it? Because among each question that I set it up, like this, Canva doesn't talk to each other. I grade by each, I go to question 1, speed grader and grade. I only see question 1. Who else answer on question 1? I only see that. I don't see student 1 answer question 1. I don't see that. So it become a major challenge for me to set up that way, yes.
And did you can search for a student name and see all their.
I can do that. You can, once you go speed grader, you can pick student name and you can see what they post, but you don't see the whole picture of question 2, how they expand to their peer.
You would only see what I have.
You already see what they said, which is, you see a part of it. And you don't see how well they engage to their peer, how well they expand their point to their peer. You just pick a student and you see, yes, they posted. Yes.
So you only see
Yeah.
the student response and their second post or third post within that single question.
Yeah.
Or you were having students posting once in question 1 and then another
Okay,
time
so
in
you
question
only search
2,
within a single-
that single
you can't
question,
search within-
not without the
No.
whole thing. Like you could in a form. It'll come back, don't worry.
Come back. So,
There's no forum.
Yeah, there's no form, there's only topics.
Yes.
And each of those discussions
You
have a
can.
topic.
oh, I forgot to mention, this is how you set up rules. Yeah, you can say apply rules and you can say number of score to ignore. So you a lower score up to it will be dropped. So you can do that. So I hope, okay, we have a good function. I can make it user friendly. I can reduce the length of discussion. Let's do that. It will be cool. That's my first time using Canvas without knowing that they don't speak to each other. So that's my fall semester experience. So I did that. Grading was real challenging because speed grader, and then I don't know, I have 40 students because I have 5 groups. So I have to keep track. So now I have to print a list of classes and okay, student 1, answer question 1, reply post question 2. Like I have to mark all 40 and have to do it every single week. It was a nightmare. So that's my point. So don't do that. So whatever, how many questions you have, make it simple, but ask critical questions. If you want them to engage and think, it's not about the length of description you have. It's about asking the right question and then put it all in one forum, I feel. And then it might be lengthy, but you can see how students engage and read together and how it works better. And grading become confusing to students. I got tons of email. This is what it shows on student. So you see student email me, this is an actual email. Student captured a screenshot and emailed me. They said, this is my grade book, it show overdue, it show missing. Actually, it show missing. The question that do not answer, it actually show missing in the grade book. Or sometimes it show overdue. If you pass, because I set up 2 different due dates, initial post and reply post. So if you pass initial due date and you don't post any of these questions, it show overdue. Which is student said, I do nothing wrong. You instruct me to do 1 out of 3. Why it show missing? Why it show due date? Why it show missing? Why it show overdue here? And then it become, at first it show missing and I removed it. And I make a dot like that. And they're like, why is a dot? What's going on? I'm like, no, the dot is it's gonna be removed because I set up to drop 2 lower grades. And then they asked me, is it remove this one because it's a blue one? Is it remove the wrong question? It doesn't remove my question 1 or remove my question 3. So they got a lot of questions that confusing on their grade book because they don't know which question was removed, which question was graded, and which one was dropped. I see a lot of missing on my grade book every week. Because if you set up every week, it becomes missing every week. And they feel like, I feel so anxious. Why I miss something, which is I do everything correct. So that gives kind of they're very anxious. And here, what it look on my grade book. So I changed from a dot, a dash I put a 0. That even worse. So I put a 0. Because then if you see the orange color, mean in Canvas, it means it's missing because it indicates missing. So you can see, because I grade the question 1 first, and then this, because maybe they reply. So when you see this, it means question 2 and question 3, they don't reply. They don't interact. When they said mean, they can do initial post question 1 and reply post question 1, but don't do at all in question 2 and question 3. But some of them, let's say if you have 2 questions like that, so potentially you might do initial post question 3, reply post question 3, or reply post question 1 and do nothing with this. Or I don't know which, let's say if you have 2 of this, I don't know which one is an initial post, because we expect you have 300 words, and you think about that question more carefully. But when you see from your own grade book, you see 2 questions that have grade like this, you don't know which one is initial post, which one is reply post. So a lot of confusing, and you drop 2. It become you have 5 and 5 and 5. So you drop 2, then students feel I do the work, why you grade only 1? You know what I mean? Because I answer everything, every question, even though I don't answer initial post every question, even though I do reply post to my peer, but I engage every question. And you drop the question that I engage. It becomes a very challenging. So that's how I see. That's my point. So you feel oh, complex is good. Me more advanced, a lot of options. No, don't. So that's my point. So that's my lesson learned number 1. And number 2 that I have is I want to create an engaging learning environment for the entire semester. This is my learning experience on this semester. So I'm teaching evidence-based nursing practice. I have 88 students. I divided students into 13 groups, 6 to 7 per group. So my intention of creating this is I'm giving them, I want them to engage and work on a living document. That document students can keep reading, adding, editing, and by the end of the semester, I hope that document become like a class note or something that they can read and help them engage throughout the semester. So that is my point. So what I do is I usually give students weekly prompt at the end of class. So I ask them either summarize the content, lesson learned today, or content that's unclear to you, whatever it is. I usually do it every week at the end of class. So then I want to create a document for them that they share what they learn, what they don't know, what's unclear among that group. So that I have 6 students per week, and then I want them to keep work and edit on it. So and I look at all the tabs on Canvas, home, the syllabus, announcement, and all the, there's a lot of some features called collaboration. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I can set up collaboration and then work, because of collaboration, if you look at people and groups, you can create groups collaboration, and they have this Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. I'm like, okay, without exploring anything, I try it. So I set up a collaboration, and then I hope to create a Word document and attach to the group. And then they have a kind of Google Doc to work on it. So that's my imaginary. So I thought it's gonna work. So I do group and attach it. Actually, you are able to set up group and Word, but to create Word, Excel document and you have to share and attach to the group, that function doesn't work very well. So that's my point. I created, and it become another separate document that go to Office 365, something like that. It become a document on a separate kind of, and then when I try to share to the group of people, some of them do not get the link, some of them cannot open the link. It just become, I thought it should be one stop, and by creating and share, it merged completely. It doesn't. That's my point. Student cannot share the document, doesn't know, it's become challenging. And I called CEDO at the beginning of semester that how do I do this? And CEDO said collaboration at that point, January this year, they said the functions are not that optimal. There's some features that we not allow and we not set up that yet. So that's why it doesn't really work very well in terms of to do that collaboration. So, and then why don't I do Google Doc? At first I thought about creating a Google Doc and then send it to the student and then let them work on it. But the Google Doc is, I want everything, I don't want another separate party that not in Canvas. That's why I don't go with Google Doc, because students have to have Google account, and those are things, it's issue about privacy and stuff. I don't want to go to Google Doc. I just want to do everything in learning environment in Canvas by using Canva. That's why I go to collaboration. So Google Doc doesn't, that's not my choice. Collaboration doesn't work very well. What did I do? So I do this. I create, so that's a regular Canvas page. So with course information, ask professor, I make a class note by week 1 to 4. So kind of, I set up a page, a separate page, and then and these are linked to ungraded discussion. Make it like ungraded discussion and make it like a class note, week 1 to 4 and week 5 to 8, and I go by week. So by set up this, and then that's the alternative one. So by doing this, because it linked to its ungraded discussion, so I have 13 groups that go to class. You can see class note. This class note is intended to use for reviewing class content. Each week I will give you a prompt to respond, and then I will review it, and then I will respond it to student. Student can click by group 1, group 2, they click, they can see that, they post it, it's become ungraded discussion forum. So I found that I do it, students kind of like it. Student report, I ask them, do they read what they replied? I summarize it, I respond, make it another discussion forum. And then students said by week 3 and week 4, it gets really long. Because I don't want to create every week a new class note. I'm like, I don't know what to do. What's a better way to do it? That's why I do by month. But I let them work every week. There's like, by week 3 and week 4, they like have to scroll down and really down. And they forgot what we covered at first and week 1. They kind of, I don't know. So it's still challenging for me to do it. It's still a lengthy discussion by that week. So I still don't know what to do in terms of to have a document that help them engage and working and continually working throughout the semester. So that is, I still don't know what is the best way. So I just want to share with you. So that's my point. So that you can do this by week 1 to week 4, week 5, and then you can go by week. So that you can do it. So that way, yes.
Thank you. Did you have any questions?
Okay, that's it. That's my 2 points to say. Set up Canvas. Simple is the best for discussion forum and collaboration. I don't know, have you tried it? If you tried it, to me, it doesn't work very well. Don't even try.
Thank you so much. Is there any questions?
Yes.
Question that I don't know, I mean, it seems very specific to me, but I have a discussion that is a 15-week discussion, and I'll open up general forums, but they can post whatever they want for the entirety of the semester. Does that even work on Canvas? It sounds like you have to.
So you created a discussion.
The discussion boards run all semester.
It works.
It does.
If you do that way, it works.
It does. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, but you needed to grade every single week was the issue.
Right, because if you set up, so if you set up that way, right? If you have 3 questions, week 1, module 1, week 2, module 2, each module will run the whole semester, and you can grade it, and then
Yeah, I don't even know what you mean.
so it's we call modules
But those are questions like.
inside
In
there.
my discussions, they post their own, I don't have anything to do with it, they post their own discussion topics and start their own threads. Is that possible for them?
Yes. So let's say for me, if student open, let's say they click module 1, so week 1, whatever you call it, you can call weeks 1, module 1, whatever you call. If they click that, open up, it depends on how many questions you have. You might do you have question for them or did
No, it's a discussion board.
but for us we give a prompt or we give
no,
a question.
there's no prompts.
Oh.
That would work, and we have some. There are some handouts
Okay,
on.
I
we
don't
can-
understand that.
No, we can
Okay,
talk
no,
more
no,
about
okay.
that too. Yeah, no, absolutely, it's a great question. It's just a really long one.
Yeah,
So-
no.
Yeah. So for us, if you clicked, for nursing, if you click this or you click option, once you click and open up, we'll give you like situations and all those stuff, and then ask you a question to reply and respond to it. Okay. And that forum, it will run throughout the semester. But my point when I present this, because as I mentioned here, but my questions are long like that. So I split question 1, question 2, question 3 to different options. And so just go option 1, option 2, option 3. until they just reply. And then they become an issue because I have 6 to 7 students. Sometimes question 1, only 1 student reply on that question 1. And how do you engage with peer? Right? Because the other 4 or 5 reply question 2 and question 3. So instead of let them engage, it's become challenging. So that's why I feel if you have multiple questions, like multiple prompts in one discussion week or one discussion module, one discussion forum, you can pretty much combine. That might be better to me. That's my.
I want to point out another lesson that I learned on the discussion forums this semester, which is that if you're grading with a rubric, you can only grade that rubric once per discussion forum. I was trying to have students post multiple times in the same discussion and grade those separately, and that does not work. So I ended up setting up separate forums. Actually, I turned it into assignments so that they were submitting separate ones, but that meant I had to go through and set up a whole bunch rather than just set up a forum for them to reply to multiple times. If those discussion posts are going to be graded separately. If you link a discussion to a rubric, you get to use that rubric once for the entire discussion. So if they're posting twice, so if they're posting, say, an initial post and then a reply, and you want to grade those separately, you cannot do that if it's a single discussion.
It's just a challenge. Yes.
Just curious, is this class online, pure online class, or do you have face-to-face too?
For this one, it's online. It's completely online. But the other one, that collaboration, is face-to-face. But I use it as a collaboration, as a tool. And I do ask them, do you post, do you read? It's optional, but my intention is like, you have something, hopefully by the end of the semester, if you review this, hopefully it gives you kind of a review book, a review guide for your final. Because every week I give you something to reflect on it, to think about it, what's other things that you learned, or how do you connect the content you learned today with other courses. So for example, like I give them a prompt about, I teach nurse research and evidence-based practice. Some concept we talk about how researchers control the experiment, how they reduce bias. And I asked about, have you seen the concept of control and bias in health courses or in your practice? Because they are nurses. They talk about, oh yeah, go to healthcare. You see a lot of nurses doing, which has become, I want them to connect and learn that document. And I want them to share and discuss and talk. And we reviewed it every week. No, every month. By reviewing it, we review by month, but they post every week and we go through it and help. Hopefully it's a learning tool that help them to engage. It doesn't work very well. Yes.
So this, you use this and in class, they also, there's discussion face-to-face also in class, and this is just to help solidify.
Yeah. I should be clear. For my first tip, it's purely online question, online class. For the first one about discussion board. For this one, it's a face-to-face class, but we also use Canvas. So for my class, it's 3 hours Friday morning at 8 o'clock. So this was a challenge. 88 students in class, 8 o'clock in the morning is research class. So I have to find a lot of things and I break down things into small pieces. So I start with do things and reviewing it, and then okay, reflect on this and kind of review it. So I have a lot of learning activity to keep them engaged. So these are one thing that I do in class, besides lecture, besides class activity. So reflect on something that you do. So I give them prompt every week, or then after they post it at the end of class, I reviewed it, I make comment, and then for the following week we talk about it. So when I started class, so I talk about it. So my intention is to be ongoing. I want that to be a document that ongoing, and then hopefully by the end of the semester, they can review that, oh, that's what I learned the whole semester. It's about this, and how do I connect with content with other classes. Those types.
So you can really appreciate it.